Now that we've spent all of that time carefully planning out the different elements in our data structure, it's time to integrate PDFKit. If you haven't seen it before, go ahead and check out their website. The documentation is pretty good, and we're going to have to find some way to take our data structure, traverse it, and then draw everything to a PDF document. We're going to go ahead and have a very quick demo of PDFKit just to see how it works. So I'm going to say import all as PDF document. It's going to be the default export from PDFKit. And we're also going to have to grab one more. That's just going to be FS, because we need some way to be able to write to the file system. So we're going to say import all as FS from FS. Let's go ahead and set this one up. The first thing we're going to do is create a new PDF document. So I'm just going to say const PDF is equal to new PDF document. And the next thing we're going to do is create a stream so we have somewhere to write to. So I'm just going to say stream is equal to pdf.pipe, and we're going to pipe that one into fs.createWritable stream. The next thing we need to do is specify the location. I'm going to call my one file.pdf. Now that we've created that, let's jump down to the bottom and we're going to make sure we write it to the file. So I'm just going to jump in here and say pdf.end. We're going to assume everything has been written by this point. And now I can just say stream.on, and we're going to listen for the finish event, which is going to be called when we finish writing the PDF. And just to see if this one's working, I'm going to do a console log and just say finish. Let's go ahead and try this one out. I'm going to write a very simple PDF document, and it has a very imperative API. You can do something like say set font, so PDF that let's say font size, I believe. I'm going to make it a font size of 40, and then we're just going to say pdf.text and say hello. And if everything is working correctly, we should write a size 40 hello font to our PDF. Let's go ahead and run that one. I'm going to do yarn ts node index.ts, and we are getting that console log finish, so it looks like something was written. If we go ahead and open file.pdf, we should see that hello, and it is working correctly. So everything is working so good so far. The next thing we need to do is figure out how we're going to iterate over this data structure and then draw all the necessary elements on the document. For now, we just have text elements, but we're going to have some styles and colors in the future as well. What we can do is just take advantage of the fact we know both the child and the parent. We're going to start from the root element and just walk our way down the tree. And if we encounter any text nodes, we're going to draw those to the PDF. So let's go ahead and create some new functions. The first one I'm going to create is going to be called walk, and it's going to traverse the entire data structure. So it's going to take a node, and this can either be a PDF nodes or a PDF elements. And all we're going to do in here is check if there's any children. If there are children, we're going to continue walking the array and deeper into the tree. So I'm going to do an if in here, and we're going to say if node is an instance of, and if it's an instance of a PDF element, we know it's going to have children. Of course, a PDF text node, for example, is not going to have children, so it's not going to come into this part of the code. And then we're going to go ahead and loop over those children. So I'm just going to say for const child of node.children. We know that node.children is an array of strings, so we're just going to continue walking over those by passing in node map, and then we're going to pass in the child. We're also going to have to draw to the screen at some point, so I'm going to say draw in here. We haven't created that function yet, but we're going to create it very soon. So let's go ahead and call that one as well. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and define my draw function just to get rid of my compilation error and see if everything is working correctly. Let's call this one draw. And the final thing we need to do is kick this off. So I'm just going to call walk, and we're going to pass in the root node. We have a very easy access to the root node. I can just say node map and pass in root, and that should hopefully start everything working. I'm going to assume this is going to work, and let's go ahead and implement draw as well. So if we come in here, it could be, for example, the text element. It's going to loop over the text element, continue walking, and then it's going to call draw, and that's going to be the PDF text node. In that case, we're going to be able to draw the element in here. Of course, we can't draw any element to the screen. It has to be a text node in this particular case. So we're going to go ahead and do a check in here. And this is the advantage of using classes to define all our elements. It's very easy to check what element you're dealing with. In this case, we're just going to say if node is an instance of a PDF text node, and if it is, we know we're going to have some text and we can draw it to the screen. I can just say pdf.text and then say node.text, and that's going to write it to the screen for me. If we've done everything correctly, this should hopefully work, and we are calling walk down here to kick everything off. I'm going to delete this text for now. Let's save it off and see what happens. With a bit of luck, we should see our text written to the screen. So let's go ahead, open our document, and we did everything correctly. Some text is rendered to the screen. You'll notice it is very small, and the reason for that is we're calling walk, and then we're going to call this draw function far before we call this font size setup here. Styles do not cascade in PDFKit like they do in a DOM. You have to make sure you set the font size correctly before you call the draw function. Let's go ahead and try this again, and this time we should see a much larger text size, and so it is a much larger this time around. Everything is working as expected. This is definitely a good place to be, and the reason this was so easy and we had to write so little code, only around 10 lines, is because we were very careful how we set everything up. Specifically, we thought carefully about our data structure, and we also thought about the different types we're going to deal with. We have a node type or the element type, and this check made it very easy to get correct type recommendations from our IDE, and everything worked on the very first try. This is definitely a good place to be, but we have a lot of improvements to make. The next thing we're going to do is figure out how we might apply some different colors and styles, and we're going to cover that in the next lecture.